10 o'clock, and the first item on the agenda is the election of chairman. Do we have any nominations, please?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Councillor Steve Clark.
Seconded? I'd like to second. Councillor Clark in the chair.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Steve Clark. I represent Milton Ward. The other two members of the subcommittee are Councillors Limford on my far right and Councillor Davis immediately next to me. In front of me is the legal advisor, Richard Davis, and on the far left is the, not quite the far left, is the Democratic Service Officer, Andy Rogers. This is a hearing into an application for premises licence in respect of the licensing subcommittee hearing of the 23rd of July 2025 at 10 a.m. for the Jubilee Camping, Browns Lane, Dameron. Firstly, I need to check that to make sure that neither I nor any of my colleagues sitting today have a personal or pecuniary interest in this matter, which would preclude us from sitting to determine the application. I have none.
No, I have none.
Me either.
Okay, thank you. I now need to check whether all parties are present, and if not, whether they've told the council they are not attending. The applicant or their representatives are here. I'm expecting Alison Burrow and David Burrow. Yep, they are here. And we have the objector, Mr. Brooks, and I understand that you're accompanied by Kirsty Anderson and Paul Nichols. Can I just point out that under the rules, Mr. Kirsty Anderson and Paul Nichols are purely observers and will not be able to make any comment at this hearing. Okay. The points made in writing for today's agenda papers will be given due consideration, and as such I believe it's in the public interest that we proceed to hear the matter today. Does the subcommittee agree?
Yes.
Thank you. I now wish to establish the order of events for this hearing. All parties have been sent the procedure for the hearing. In brief, the procedure is as follows. First, I will ask the legal advisor if there are any issues that require clarification. Secondly, I will ask the licensing manager to present her report. I will then ask the applicants side to present their case. After this, I will give the objector the opportunity to ask any questions of the applicants. I must stress that this is questions only, not a submission at this point, and the subcommittee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. I will then ask the objector to present his case. After this, the applicants and then the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask the objector any questions. I will then ask the objector and then the applicants to sum up their cases. The hearing will then close and the subcommittee will determine the matter in private. The decision will be given within 5 working days. Before I proceed, may I take it that all parties are in agreement with the procedure as submitted? Thank you. Before we begin, I will ask the legal advisor, Richard Davis, if there are any issues that require clarification.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. David Francis Burrow, the owner of Jubilee Camping, Browns Lane, Dameron, has submitted an application for a new premises licence under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. In accordance with Section 18 of the Licensing Act, where relevant representations have been made to the licensing authority in response to a premises licence application, the licensing authority must hold a hearing to consider them. Having regard to those relevant representations, the licensing authority may take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options open to them are outlined for the subcommittee and the parties in the report at page 8 of the pack, paragraph 26 to 28. The report outlines for the parties that the single representation received by the licensing authority raises issues relating, amongst others, to planning and competition to local business, as well as the contractual terms between the applicant and another business. However, I must remind the subcommittee and the parties that those latter issues fall outside the remit of this subcommittee and the Licensing Act 2003. The application to be determined today relates to the licensable activities applied for only, and the impact of those licensable activities on the 4 licensing objectives which are set out on the report at page 6 of the pack, at paragraph 19. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I now ask the licensing manager, Krista Ferguson, to present her report, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received an application for a new premises licence for Jubilee Camping site in Dameron. The application seeks to provide films outdoors Monday to Sunday 8 a.m. till 2300 hours, supply of alcohol Monday to Sunday 8 a.m. to 2300 hours, with premises being open to the public Monday to Sunday 8 a.m. till 2300 hours. Music between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2300 hours is exempt from the requirement to be licensed and may take place through the Live Music Act and other exemptions. The sale of alcohol to campers on the field has previously taken place from a small bar using temporary event notices. Jubilee Camping have applied for a number of temporary event notices, holding events such as beer and music festivals and providing a private bar for their campers. During those tends, 3 noise complaints were received by Environmental Health, one in 2018, 2020 and 2021. Officers reviewed and investigated these complaints and no further action was taken. We have received 1 objection to the application from a resident whose home is approximately 250 metres from the site of the proposed bar. Therefore, this application is brought before members to determine, as we have received the objection to the application from a neighbour. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, if we can just remind people to turn their mobile phones down and so they don't ring. Thank you.
Thank you. Could the applicants, Mr. Raisborough, please present their case?
Good morning. My name's Alison Burrow and my husband David and I own and run Jubilee Camping as a campsite on part of our family farm. At the risk of repeating what has been written in the statement from Mr. Stevens or in the agenda document for this subcommittee hearing, I shall try and give a little more information about us and our family farm and campsite just for context. On site, we offer catering in the form of breakfast rolls and evening food, alongside the Shepherd's Hut-style outdoor bar, from which we serve local ales, lager, ciders, amongst other alcoholic drinks. The bar has operated under temporary event notices for each weekend it's been in operation, totalling 47 to date, over the 8 years, including this year. We have applied for this premises licence for 2 reasons. Firstly, so we can open the campsite bar for more than 21 days per calendar year, as stipulated by the TENS system. Jubilee Camping, as a campsite, has been operating under permitted development since 2018 and was certified by the exempt camping organisation Wanderlust in August 2024. This certification has afforded us a longer camping season than previously permitted to help make the best use of the most popular holidaying times. The second reason is the time frame in which temporary event notices must be submitted. It is fair to say that camping bookings certainly take an upturn when the weather forecast improves, and in our experience, bookings are often made at the last minute, even a day or 2 before they're due to arrive. Having a premises licence would give us the flexibility to make the decision when to open the bar to campers at the last minute, based on accurate and up-to-date booking occupancy figures. The additional bar openings that a premises licence would allow us would in no way increase the risk of public nuisance or in fact contravene any of the 4 objectives. The number of customers visiting the bar would not exceed those we've already had under any of the previous 47 TENS notices. The premises licence would simply allow for more of the same of what's already been permitted and proven to comply with the 4 objectives. The campsite as a whole, including the bar and adjacent area of grass with picnic tables, has a feeling of wholesome family enjoyment. The usual demographic who stays at the campsite are families, and therefore the adults tend to be in their 30s and older. Whilst we operate the Challenge 25 policy at the bar, in reality this is rarely even needed. Children are there with their parents but have no need to go to the bar. Food, snacks and soft drinks are available at a separate outlet around the corner. We are confident that this satisfies the licensing objective of the protection of children from harm. The bar is in a central location within the campsite. We have a quiet time policy of no music and voices lowered between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m, which applies to all areas of the campsite, and all campers are made aware of this by way of a printed leaflet stating these rules, amongst others to minimise public nuisance, as well as for their own safety. We have an on-site warden who stays overnight to monitor noise and carry out the objectives of our own noise management plan. We have gladly agreed to the condition of no more than 12 outdoor film screenings per calendar year, and when positioning the cinema on site and determining volume, we will of course be mindful of the other agreed condition regarding noise levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Burrows, do you wish to add anything?
We've just got some of the leaflets that we hand out to each and every customer that turns up. We've got a leaflet that we hand out which explains how the quiet time is and anything else. So if anybody would like a copy, just for proof of wind, I don't know.
We bought a few.
Could I ask you to pass that to the legal advisor, please?
Sorry, in handing this out, we also do a vocal conversation with each and every car that comes on site, passing one of these leaflets to them and also explaining them to the site about the site rules.
Thank you. Could we pass a copy to the objector, please? Just giving everybody the opportunity to read it. Crystal, while we're waiting for it to be read, have you seen that leaflet? No. Okay, I think everybody's had the opportunity to read it now. Mr Brooks, do you have any questions of the applicants? So you're just purely asking questions at this point as to rates of the licence?
There were two group family camping areas on the site. Where are they exactly?
They're on the southernmost point of the campsite, within the boundary of the campsite itself.
Yeah, can we just see where they are on the map?
So the two areas are on the northernmost edge, no, not the northern, sorry, the southernmost edge of Crest Down, southwestern area. There's an orange line that goes directly up across the steep field, and then there are two camping lines just to the right-hand side of that.
They're close together, though. Next
Pardon?
to each other.
Pardon?
They're next to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where they are, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. When did your discussions begin with Wanderlust?
That's a matter of private contract, and that doesn't pertain to the Licensing Act. So can I ask you not to ask questions that relate to contract, matters outside the Licensing Act?
But it pertains to my observations of what's happening here.
Unfortunately, this is a licensing hearing, and the only issues that can be raised are matters that relate to the licensing objectives as laid down by the Licensing Act. And anything outside of that cannot be permitted within this hearing.
Okay, so what can or can't be permitted? Thank you.
There are 4 licensing objectives which I think you've been made aware of, and it's matters which pertain to the licensing objectives only that can be a part of this hearing.
That they do absolutely pertain to that question.
I'll listen to the question, but I may or may not allow it.
When did discussions first begin with Wanderlust?
No, I'm not going to allow that question.
On what basis?
Can I ask my legal advisor to explain what we mean in that respect?
Thank you, Chair. The Chairman is trying to get you to keep within the licensing objectives, which questions are very much tied in with those 4. The fact that there is a discussion on a private contract at the moment doesn't appear to have anything to do with the licensing objectives. Perhaps if you could explain to the Chair which one of those licensing objectives this is going to refer to.
Exactly.
Initially, so
Yes.
it might make it clearer.
Well, I haven't been asked, actually. It pertains to the representations of which, this is a very good example, that the applicant makes that are not always strictly accurate or can be changed at a whim. And they go to the very heart of what the applicant may be saying either is occurring or does occur, and then can be changed at a later date. It's on. It's on.
Yeah, put it off, and then, because it has to... you still haven't said which one of the licensing objectives.
Nuisance. It goes to the heart of the representations made by somebody who can write their own rules and police them, and can make representations to people like yourselves and then change them. And the knowing of the answer to these questions I'm answering was purely to get a firmer idea of what representations have been made to other bodies to demonstrate that what the applicant does is change his mind. And it would demonstrate that clearly within that, whatever it actually is said about nuisance, in not causing, say, noise after 10 o'clock, you can demonstrate that this can be changed by the applicant at a whim.
The point of a licence here is to set conditions. If a licence is granted, it's to set conditions by which the licensing has to be operated. This is a part of a private agreement between campers and the applicants, and it's not actually part of the licensing document. You're right, it could be changed, but that would be subject to the business aspects of the case. And we're not here to consider the business aspects. There are parts of it, such as the asking to limit noise and be considerate, and the quiet time, which are relevant for us to consider, and we have that leaflet to consider, and that can be put within the licensing. So if you restrict your questions to the noise and the nuisance part of it, then I'm quite happy for you to put that question.
So there is some pertinence, just to go wider, is that because it operates under a camping concession through Wanderlust, it enables them to operate for 365 days, which is pertinent to the argument of nuisance and how long that nuisance occurs. And there's no regulation at all.
I need you to put a question at this point to the applicants. You will have the opportunity to make a statement in just a minute.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it would be the same. Well, it's not a question, it's a statement of fact. So I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and I'll move to the other councillors. Mr. Burrows, do you allow any non-campers to access the site?
There are people that come up onto site to help maintain standards on the site, to help staff it and that sort of thing, but others no. Not that we're aware of.
More precisely, I was thinking of the alcohol and things like that.
For the use of the bar, so for the next Saturday we have a Wiltshire Cancer UK fundraising event that are coming onto site to do what's called a colour run, where there are, we don't know numbers yet because we haven't been told, but they sign up to do a fun run, like a park run type thing, and they will come up, and part of after their run they are allowed to use the bar and the catering facilities and the toilets and everything else accordingly.
So some will camp and some will not. So not all the users of the bar are campers staying with us.
So in the main, it's the campers who use the bar facility, but you do have booked events.
Yes.
Where you may have more people.
Yes.
What sort of numbers will we be looking at?
A number of events.
No. Numbers of people and the number of events.
As far as we know, so far as of a couple of days ago when I spoke to Wessex Cancer Support Organiser, they had 100 applicants for the fun run.
But it will not exceed the 500 that are allowed, if that's your angle of the question.
But that's part of the angle of the question, yes.
Yeah,
no,
it won't reach that many.
So you'll be within the terms of any licence.
Yes.
That's correct, yeah.
And how many events like that each year?
That's the only one like that booked.
That's the only one booked this year. We have the local school doing a film night early September, mid-September, where the parents, and it's a fundraiser for the school basically, doing a film night on a Saturday evening, where there might be 50 parents, 50 couples and their children maybe. But then the campsite, well, we don't know what the campsite will be doing because of the weather side of things. We never know what's going to happen one way or the other.
But they'll be asked to purchase tickets, so therefore we can monitor the number of people who will be coming, and if needed, cap it before it reaches 499.
Okay. Would you be happy to accept conditions that that in general, with the exception of certain events, the alcohol should be restricted to those camping on the site?
Yes, if we were doing, did you mean with the exception of doing the events?
With the exception of doing the events, and I'll come to the events after that question as well. So generally speaking, just normal camping restricted to the campers?
Yes.
And would you accept a restriction on the total number of events that you may hold? So,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Lynn.
Yeah, I only have one. In the documentation I've read, your quiet time's 2200. You're applying for a licence to run to 2300 hours. Would you be agreeable for some sort of leeway on those times?
We would be agreeable, but if we can just say that the quiet time is from 10 o'clock, we actually start, if there's what we consider to be too much noise going on, we try to pull it down by 9:30 in the evening, 9 o'clock in the evening. We find reminding kids, because it's normally young children that are just playing, screaming, playing games of football or whatever and just playing. So we generally try and pull the noise levels down earlier than that, so that then by 10 o'clock they're at a sensible level when they might be thinking about going to bed. The bar licence is, the selling of alcohol is very often in tune, so that when the kids go to bed at 9 o'clock, 9:30 or whatever, one of the parents can come down and have a quiet, relaxing drink with their mates or whatever. Very, very rarely are we serving alcohol after 10 p.m.
Just one other thing, the previous TENS notices that we've operated under have always run to 2300 as well, even though we generally close the bar down at, say, 10 o'clock there or thereabouts. But in essence, it gives us a little buffer for the last few to finish up.
Jim, just to answer my question, would you be
Yes, we would.
amenable? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, would you like to now present your case?
I think I just start going back, and it probably goes to the heart of what we're pitching to you as the licensing subcommittee, is that originally when the campsite started, it didn't necessarily comply with the laws and regulations that were happening at that time regarding planning, which has nothing to do with licence, but it's a behavioural aspect. There was a lot of noise from this. There were parties, there were stag nights, there was beer festivals, there were music festivals. There was a lot of noise. And until environmental health got involved, and there were a number of complaints, and don't ask me to say on which date of which year exactly, but there were a number of complaints that got environmental health involved. And until environmental health were involved, there was a lot of noise. And we're probably one of the closer properties at 250 metres from the site, were receivers of a lot of banter you would not want to hear. It's as simple as that. That would go on late into the night. And when environmental health got involved, they clearly had discussions with the applicant. And I don't think in terms of actual volume of decibels, the campsite were breaking the law. But they obviously had discussions, and the campsite quieted down. So, on the one hand here, if we hadn't got involved, and if we hadn't complained, and the campsite was allowed to develop entirely as it wished under its original guise, we would there'd be a lot of nuisance here. So, with environmental health being involved, the campsite has changed, and it has its rules and regulations as presented here, and this does all look good, but my point on the nuisance here is that this is a rule made by the applicants, and they can change these things as they like, and the nuisance could easily go back to its previous levels. In addition, as they have the rights to have the whole site open for 365 days a year, and under the quite large and varied events they can hold, and this upcoming Splash and Dash event that they're going to have is obviously going to be open up to, clearly, so far 100 people, plus all the campers, whatever they are, plus whoever may also turn up on today. But again, prior to environmental health being involved and prior to us, a group of residents and generally people complaining, here's an advert for something called the Equinox Fire Festival. That was for the 30th, whenever. But they're going to have big fires, fireworks, dancing, etc., etc., etc. And the fear is, or the fear about the nuisance, is that having already had the nuisance, this nuisance under the 365 days and all the different types of dog shows, car boot festivals, beer festivals, music festivals, dance festivals, weddings, etc., which they're completely allowed to have, this goes back without very tight restrictions. It goes back to being the nuisance that it originally was. So, and I could go through all the various representations, but I would ask you not to simply take it at face value that because somebody produces a leaflet to say we will be shut by 2200, that actually is the case, because they can change that unless you embody it in some tight regulations. And this to us is very important because, again, they talk about it being 2200, but go to the website today, one of the party areas is not quietened down until 2300. So you've got to be very careful about the representations being made. And until the environmental health got involved, I mean, there was general camping noise which is acceptable, that goes on all day, but it was unregulated and intrusive. As I say, there were stag nights, larger parties, there was no shutdown time, etc., etc., etc. So all of these things need to be very clearly specified and, in our view, or my view, adhered to. We are not objecting to the per se use of a licence. What we're looking at is the conditionality around which that licence. We could argue about whether it should be for the whole site. It's a hell of a big site. It's almost half a mile by half a mile. It's 20 acres, of which you can get, I think it's 98 pitches on. And if 499 people, how do you control all that and the nuisance that may generate? So by stipulating exactly what noise levels and all the paraphernalia that goes with the nuisance factor, you set, and we would ask for a high bar in allowing all these various events, and the numerous events that they can have are tremendous. It's a tremendous number, and they want outside people into the camp. So this is close to the village. It's in an A on B. It's in a dark sky. We're a conservation area, etc., etc., etc. So that is the basis of the whole of my presentation. That all the things, whether just here's a quick list of what they can have. They can have festivals, weddings, reunions, one-of-a-kind celebrations, dog shows, music evenings, horse shows, fire festivals, boxing, wrestling, motor shows, car parks, car boot sales. They can put up marquees, etc., etc. And prior, they have had big marquees there before. They have had big lighting. They've been asked under the planning appeal for the showers and toilets not to only have certain lights and have them shut off by 11 o'clock. And we would ask that within the context of this planning licence, that is embodied in the conditions. A lot of that is embodied into the tighter conditions, because environmental health have asked for, let me see exactly what they say. They say all noise associated with the association of films and performance of dance, etc. But we would argue that all noise emanating from the premises, whilst audible, shall be so low that distinct tunes, words, musical instruments, and any bass beat cannot be recognised, etc., etc., etc. it's not just the noise from the films, it's all these other things they could put on, whether it's the Wet and Wild Festival.
Mr. Brooks, I'm going to stop you there because part of the licensing process is to achieve sort of a mediation and agreement. You heard me ask questions about the number of events, and my colleague asked questions about the time. And you seem to be saying that if certain conditions were met, you would be not objecting.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't have any principled objection against a bar, or I have objections in the way it's presented to you by the applicant.
Let me make a suggestion, because I asked the applicant if they'd be happy to limit the number of events a year. That would be the ones between 100 and 500. 500 plus becomes a different thing altogether. So these would be, what would be considered relatively small events. I know over 100 might seem quite large in some places, but if we were to condition at a maximum of 12 events per year, which is a fairly standard way when we condition, and if we were to condition that the alcohol must cease being sold at 10 o'clock at night, would that satisfy your objections?
Well, not to be honest, not quite, because you can stipulate 12 events, but if those events are noisy, okay, you can live with some noise, and yet we do live with the noise from the campsite. But I prefer, as I say, on the environmental health recommendations to yourselves.
In terms of environmental health, there are a set of rules which you're aware of because you've approached environmental health. The ability of environmental health to operate is always there, and it would be reinforced by the conditions within a licence.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and so if you felt that the licence was being breached at any time, and if the licence was granted today without any conditions, you'd still have this right. Yeah. But if you felt that licence was being breached, you can call in the licence for review at any time, and that's part of the Licensing Act. So there is a strong onus on the operators of the licence to comply with the full conditions of the licence, and that includes noise and nuisance. Okay. One of the advantages of a licence that you might have is that once a licence is granted, the conditions are set down within the terms of that licence and must by law be complied with. If they operate under the 10 system, which they've operated up to now, you don't have quite the same protection. So if we were to consider the option of limiting the number of events in line with other locations that we see, and you've got that protection in terms of environmental health, would you consider withdrawing your objections?
I laugh. No. but I don't object, the use of wording, I don't object in principle to clearly the site having licensing. What we're objecting to is this conditionality, or the things that I'm trying to persuade you as the committee to tighten up. Because under what we've got here at the moment, okay, we've got the 12 outdoor film screenings, and I say it's all noise, and I'm reading this, associated with the showing of films. So whatever these other events are, and maybe they don't do 12 films, they do 10 films and 2 other events, or 10 other events, etc., etc., etc. Is tightening up the words so that it's very clear that the noise, the nuisance emanating from the premises, not just the noise emanating from the films and performance. So we would withdraw our objection, if that's what you're technically asking for the licence, if these words were tightened up and, as you say, there was a limitation on the number of events, because at the moment, and it's got to be, and the point is, it has to be written by somebody like yourselves, a regulatory body, because the applicant can change his mind as per his little leaflet at a whim.
Yeah, Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to go round in circles. I'm exploring ways to reach a resolution that works for everybody, and that is part of the process of licensing, both at the application stage and if it gets to this stage as well. In terms of what you're asking, I somehow think that to condition noise in the way in which you're asking is almost an impossibility. There are ways in which noise are enforced, and that's subject to other statutory guidelines under environmental health, etc. So we can put conditions on which enable us to say, in general terms, condition noise. But in terms of what you're asking, all types of noise, I don't see a way we can actually do that. But it's helpful in your reply that if there were some conditions, we may be able to at least partially satisfy you. So I'm going to go back to the applicants now. I'll come back to you, Jack, in a minute, because I sort of jumped around in the process. So, all right. Mr. Brooks, Mrs. Brooks, do you have any questions?
Questions for the objector?
Yeah, questions for the objector. Sorry.
We have no questions to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, I have a question for the objector around the noise query. That seems to be your major concern. What other types of performance films, events or anything would you want to see included specifically?
Well, they're allowed under the whatever permitted development, exact regulation, don't know, but under the recreational output of, they're allowed, there's an exact list I don't have, but you can put on anything that is sort of deemed a recreational event, outdoor event. So, as I say, it can be a festival, it's weddings, reunions, one-of-a-kind celebration, dog shows, music evenings, horse shows, fire festivals, boxing, wrestling, motor shows, car parks, markets, marquees, filmmaking, car booths. It's a vast list. We're not particularly interested in any one individual event.
Yeah.
We're interested in the nuisance.
Mr. Brooks, that list you're reading from is a fairly generic list which is included in most licensing applications. It gives people leeway to operate a number of different events, but they are subject to controls and factors which, when you're talking about a festival, that is often organised in a totally different way, and if it was going to exceed the numbers that we've talked about today, that would go through a different process where statutory agencies are contacted and look at how all the safety issues, etc., that might involve these larger events. We're talking here small events contained within the site, such as been described to us. So it's a standard list of types of activity. But when I said the limit to 12 a year, that would be 12 events, full stop, a year.
I hear that.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. But you still wish to object.
As I keep on saying, I'm not objecting per se to the granting of this licence. I am objecting, and I would discuss with you when you talk, you can't, or if environmental health can write and ask for you that whilst any sound or the audibility of the film shows or performance of dance should be so low that distinct tunes, words, musical instruments and any bass beat cannot be recognised at the boundary of all noise-sensitive premises. I can't see why that same wording can't be used for all noise from the site. Because that is your de facto baseline of distinguishing noise from a film or noise from a performance of dance. It's noise.
It's one of those very difficult areas to define, but I've tried to come to a resolution, so I'll take that. So, any other questions from councillors? No. Thank you. Mr. Brooks, part of the process is that we have you put your case, and then we ask you to sum up. Often that means if you haven't, you've already said what you wanted to say, but it's part of the process. But is there anything else you wish to say?
Well, you've clearly got lots of choices on what you can do. You can turn this down, which probably doesn't seem that sensible, or as I say, you can put much more conditionality around it so that we don't have to come back. We don't have to call this in. We don't have to go through this rigmarole again. The operator clearly has got clear boundaries on what amount of nuisance he can cause or not cause, and hopefully it's none. And we can all live happily ever after without going through this, and hopefully it will be limited to 12, and hopefully people outside the site won't be able to pour in. But 499 people, I know you say larger festivals, but 499 people in that site at night, majority of them drinking, will make, within the context of our village, a reasonable amount of nuisance via noise.
Okay. Mr. Burrow, anything you wish to say?
As you said previously, the environmental health get involved with if we go over noise, if anything was to go wrong. We don't let anything go wrong, but if there was, then they're well within their rights to come and do whatever they need to do anyway. So we've operated 47 event licences. Yes, the 3 complaints were very early doors when NFDC came out and done their investigations, gave us guidelines about how to impose a noise management plan and that sort of thing. And ever since that has happened, back in the very early days, we haven't had a problem. So on that basis, that's about all I can say on that matter, really.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the hearing. Thank you for your attendance. I now declare the meeting adjourned. The subcommittee will retire to consider their decision, and the written reasons for the decision will be given within 5 working days.